Speaking of losing value, let's talk about Zack Snyder and how he's bashing critics of Batman versus Superman. We've been longtime critics of Zack Snyder here on the Salty Nerd podcast. At least I have, and he is recently came out in an interview and said this. I think that probably is what caused the movie to be so polarizing, Snyder said. I feel like a lot of people went into the movie going, oh, it's the superhero romp, right? Let's have fun with it. But we gave them a sort of hardcore deconstructivist, heavily layered, experimental, modern mythological superhero movie that you really need to pay attention to. Was that not cool for them? Or that was not cool for them? That's not something anyone wanted to do. They were like, what? No, that's exhausting. Why do they fight at night? I hate that. And
what the
and so like guys, like, so I've been very on the record about my dislike for Zack Snyder in terms of like his storytelling ability. Like, he's a great visualist, but as a filmmaker and as a storyteller, he's absolute garbage. And I can remember going to see Batman versus Superman in the theater. I was really excited about it. And it was the most convoluted, heavy-handed plot. Like, all you needed to make that movie work was have Batman be the antagonist, Superman be the protagonist, and have them keep butting up against each other and culminating in a final fight where they eventually work out their differences and decide to like team up. You didn't need all the Lex Luthor BS. You didn't need all the other stuff in there. You just needed Batman versus Superman. So like, Snyder has a very bad habit of making things way more complicated than they need to be in terms of like a narrative perspective. But the ego on this guy is what really drives me nuts, because he's one of those guys who's like, my poop don't stink, right?
He sounds like his fans, actually. That's what bothers me.
Well, and you know, like, a lot of it came out after the Snyder Cut got released, that, you know, his marketing, his PR firm that he contracts with, used a lot of bots to generate false support for the releasing of the Snyder Cut. And I feel like this guy is just a manipulative jerk, really. But this type of stuff, where basically if you didn't get Batman versus Superman, you're an idiot. You know, like, that's basically what he's saying in this interview. Matt Vader 74. What's your take on this?
I don't know if I even have a take. I didn't mind Zack Snyder's Justice League movie, the one that he remade and they released as a miniseries or whatever. I actually really kind of like that. I like 300. I like his weird zombie movie. Does he have an ego? Yeah, he has an ego. But I haven't met a filmmaker yet that doesn't have an ego, including the one over here next to me. Yeah. So it's just more, seems like par for the course to me. I mean, you got to have an ego to be in this business, right? So he's just gonna talk shit and be Zack Snyder. You either love him or you hate him. I honestly, I don't know where I sit.
There are filmmakers.
I'm on either side of the fence depending on how I wake up each morning. So when it comes to Zack Snyder, so
there are filmmakers who have an ego, who deserve the ego.
Okay,
they make good stuff.
No, here we go again.
Filmmakers who have the ego, who don't deserve it, like James Mangold, for instance. Brian from the Popcast.
Yes.
What do you think? Like, so you're our resident DC expert, right? You run a DC channel. No one did more damage to the DCEU than Zack Snyder, in my opinion. And Batman versus Superman was just a mess. In fact, even when they released the extended edition, which made the story make more sense, it was still a mess. So what's your take on this? Do you think that Zack Snyder's just trying to rewrite history here?
Oh, first off, I think you're wrong. You're right. That movie was a mess. But Zack Snyder is not the person who did all the damage to DC. The studio and their extremely horrible management of their properties and their IPs, their mistrust of every single creator, and the fact that they had like 55 executives running the same branch, and they ran like psyops on their own IP just because they didn't like people, they damaged DC beyond any measure. Zack Snyder is a creative that obviously made mistakes, and not everything Zack Snyder makes is good. But he is not the one, I don't think, that damaged the DC brand. Thank God for David Zaslav, the Zaslav, coming in here and actually like cleaning house, because there was no other way you could have gotten this DC train back on track, because it was just entirely broken with 15 people making decisions that were all contrary to each other. Now, that said, I do think Zack Snyder is a narcissist. But I think that Vader's right, and I think that you got to have a little bit of narcissism to do this job.
Vader's always right.
You got to have a little narcissism. You got to be full of yourself a little bit to be able to be a writer, director, creative showrunner, whatever. I know showrunners, and like, you know, base level, they're great guys, but like you get them going, and like, wow, I almost forgot he's sort of an asshole, and that's just sort of the way. That's just the way they are. But that said, yeah, you're right. He doesn't make not everything. Like, listen, I will hand to God, Man of Steel is one of my favorite all time movies. And Zack Snyder's Justice League is absolutely outstanding. It's on my top 10 easily. But BVS, the studio wanted one thing, Snyder wanted to do something else, and he tried to like fake him out. It didn't work. And then the unfortunate stuff with Justice League, and he wasn't able to finish his fake out. That's what it was. He was like, I'm going to fake him out. I'm going to get Batman in there, but don't worry, I'll clean it up with Justice League. But then his kid died or whatever, and he had to leave, so he couldn't finish the fake out. So I don't think he's the one that damaged it. And I think that I don't like it when directors bash critics. Like, that's their job. Like, their job is to criticize your work. You know, instead of bashing a critic, maybe, unless they're being assholes, but maybe you should just be better at it. You know, take their information, even if it's bad, but like take all information and apply it to yourself and try to become the best version of yourself.
Well,
but
I'd go so far as to say he wasn't bashing critics; he was bashing audiences, because basically the critics were just reflecting what the audiences were saying about this movie.
Since when do critics reflect audience, though? Have you seen a Rotten Tomatoes score?
Well, he's not talking about professional critics. He's talking about just critics in general of the movie.
I see.
Which includes audiences. Now, Primitive Ramblings, you know, this is your first time on our show. I don't know how you feel about Zack Snyder or the DCEU. So why don't you give us your take on this? Do you think Zack Snyder is right in criticizing people who didn't like Batman versus Superman?
No, it just seems a bit in denial to me. You know, to say, oh no, you just didn't like it because you didn't pay attention. It's like, you know, the reason people didn't like it because they paid attention. You know, because I remember going to see the BVS when it came out, and it just, even watching it in the cinema, it was just, you know, scene, like every, you know, 30 seconds. Nothing really connected to each other. I think the only film of Zack Snyder's that I like is probably 300. That's about it. That's really all I can think of out of all of his films that I've seen. Is 300 is really the only one that stands out.
Yeah, 300 is real stylistic. That's a lot of people like that because it was such a fresh style. But like, I think that same movie introduced today, now that people are used to this style, I don't think it does it very good.
The thing about 300 is, like, number one, it was based off of a Frank Miller comic, who's a much better writer than Zack Snyder. If you want to get a real sense of Zack Snyder's talent, you look at something like Sucker Punch, which he came up with the idea, he wrote the script, he filmed the movie, and Sucker Punch is an abysmal film. It's in the
similar style. So you're right, yeah.
Well, I mean, that's Zack Snyder's style. Anything that he's done that's been somewhat good basically had source material that started off pretty good.
Hey guys, if you could do me a quick favor, if you like this episode and it tickles your fancy, or any other episode that we've done in the past, share it on social media and tag us in that post so that we know you're talking about us, and we will immediately jump onto that app and we will respond to your tag, and we can talk about what you like about the episode and possibly talk about something that we might want to cover in the future. And we would love to bring you in our community. We have a wonderful Discord app as well. There's a bunch of people in there that just love chatting with us. And we'd love to hear from you. So if you like this podcast, tag us in that post and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Thank you guys so much. Back to the podcast.
So like, I don't know, like, Tom, you know, I have dealt with the Snyder cult for a number of years
As
now.
have I.
Just because I've been critical of him on Twitter, and like they've come after me and stuff like that. And so, like, I can imagine that when you have that hardcore of a fan base, you know, like you feel justified in basically like, you know, calling your audience like idiots who didn't get his deep superhero film. And this is the same guy who said he wanted to have Batman raped in prison and stuff like that. So what's your take on this? Like, do you think that Batman versus Superman gets a bad rap, or is Snyder just
hell
being
no,
a complete idiot?
He's being a complete idiot. In fact, like you just said it yourself, Matt, anytime, you know, when I had any of my scoops in the last few months about what was going on over at Warner Brothers, and especially if it was anything that was remotely sounding like Snyder was not coming back or having anything to go forward, or even his stuff was going to be erased in some way, the amount of crap that I would get on Twitter and in the comments, I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yep.
They just come after you like piranhas. And you're right. You pointed it out exactly, Matt. Part of the problem here is his firm that he had working with all the bots and stuff, because a lot of the Snyder fans like to try and pretend that the Snyder cult is a lot bigger than they are. That's the problem. Here's the plain facts. What Matt said is true. What is also true is over 60% of the people that started watching the Snyder Cut on HBO Max turned it off before they finished it. That means that most people never even finished watching it. It was so boring. The movies were disasters. BVS was considered a flop. Justice League was even considered more of a flop, regardless of how you feel of, you know, Joss Whedon taking that movie over or not. Joss Whedon was part of the process before he even took over, because they were already having problems because of the reception to Batman v Superman, which was also a result of the reception of Man of Steel, which at the end of the day, Man of Steel was 100% Zack Snyder's vision. So this all boils down to the fact that the guy does not understand superheroes, and he's trying to call us stupid because we didn't understand his stupid movie. Now, I'll be the first one to say, look, it's a comic book movie. It's about a guy who flies around in tights and a dude who goes out at night dressed like a bat and rides around in a fancy car and has gadgets. I get it. Sometimes you have to turn your brain off and go, it's just a movie, stupid. But sometimes, just sometimes, it's also just a stupid fucking movie, and we have to call it out. And Matt's 100% right. This was the easiest job in Hollywood anybody could have ever been given. All you got to do is make a Batman v Superman movie. That's it. And like Matt said, it's easy as hell to do. You can even include Lex Luthor. You can even make him a part of the reason why they're fighting, because he's manipulating Bruce Wayne in the background, right? And then that's when Bruce finally realizes, oh, I'm being played. I need to team up with this super guy instead against Lex Luthor and whatever he's done. That's how easy it is. Zach tries to think that he is so fucking cool and so edgy and dark, and if you don't get it, you don't like it, you just don't get it. No, it's fucking stupid and pretentious. And just like everybody else here on the panel has pointed out, unless he has something pre-written for him by somebody who's actually a decent writer, James Gunn, then you can't make a decent movie. Okay, he even screwed up one of the easiest movies in history with Batman v Superman. How do you do that? How? There's 120,000 comics about Batman v Superman. Pick one.
There's a lot of source material for that. No, you're totally right. And the Martha thing, I remember the audience groaning.
I was going to point that out, Brian. Like this is the same filmmaker who gave us "Why did you say that name?" a meme.
Yeah, why did you say that name?
Why did you say that name? So like the whole Martha thing, that was Zack Snyder, and basically he cribbed the final battle directly from the Dark Knight Returns.
Yeah,
right?
Frank Miller, right?
Yeah. So like he did have a source material to work with, but he had to like figure out how to take it out of the Dark Knight Returns storyline and jam it into something that he was trying to make for the DCEU, and it just didn't work. Right, like the whole thing with Batman is like, if there's even a 1% chance that he's our enemy, we have to take him down. It's like, wait, what? Like that doesn't make any sense.
I mean, no, that part makes sense.
No, it
he's a god.
It makes sense for Batman to have some sort of backup plan, but
yeah,
the problem goes with, first of all, you've got this whole convoluted thing in the earlier part with Wonder Woman, she shouldn't even be there. It's over a picture that's on his disk drive. Guess what?
Yeah.
If the picture's on a disk drive, there's probably 20,000 other copies, lady. You're not getting the only copy there. So let's not even get to how stupid that is and convoluted.
Yeah.
Here's how stupid the movie ends. You've got Superman going, we need to talk. And he pushes Batman instead of talking, right? At any time, the motherfucker could just flew up 12 feet and go, stop, we need to talk. He's got my mother. You know, we get the whole point of the Martha thing. The problem with it was executed stupid.
It was like both people were. It was like they both just lost brain cells for that moment. And Batman's supposed to be like the smartest detective on the planet, and he can't put two and two together for 5 minutes. And then also Superman can't just stop. He is a god. He is a god. He doesn't have to actually fight. He could just be like, wait, oh, dude. They got my mom.
Hold up. They got my mom, dude.
Wait, we're forgetting the fact that in the last 10 minutes, they shoehorn in the Doomsday Death of Superman story.
Yeah, let's not even get me started on that crap. One of the most overrated moments in comic book history, kids. It was meant as a holdover. It was never meant to stick. It was never meant to be anything more than just, we got to waste some time.
I still love that book. I have that book. Death of Superman's a great book.
It's all right, but it's overrated as hell.
I mean, it's overrated because all the normies got it, but it's a good book, bro.
But you take that entire thing, which could have been a movie in and of itself, and you put it into 10 minutes.
Bingo.
Of a 2.5 hour.
That's my bigger gripe too.
That's agree. The biggest problem. You took an entire book and you crammed it into 10 minutes and you ruined the character forever.
You don't get it. You don't get how deep it is, right?
I only have one wish in life right now. And I really wish to God Tom would turn his fucking camera on when he gets so heated. Because I want to see purple Tom. I really do. So, yeah.
You'll just see my head explode eventually.
I know. It would be so awesome. It would be amazing. Yeah.
It's like Scanners.
I'm glad you guys are so passionate about
Scanners?
Zack Snyder.
Real quick, the Astro Nerd Boy for $10. Batman vs. Superman suffered from Warner desperately trying to catch up with Marvel. Doomsday shouldn't have been in it, and the resolution of Batman and Superman's conflict is convoluted. Snyderverse had potential. I'll agree with you, Astro Nerd Boy. I feel like the Snyderverse did have potential, and I'm kind of sad to see that James Gunn is kind of like abandoning it, where he could have righted the ship and fixed what wasn't working. But I mean, the issue is that whole strategy, I think, was thought up by Zack Snyder, where it's like, instead of slowly building up to the crossover, we'll just start with the crossover and then go out into individual stuff. And that doesn't give fans a time to like get to know the characters, like, create anticipation for like the big threat that they're going to be facing. And now we're just left with like a big set of blue balls, because we're never going to know how any of that stuff, is resolved.
But to be fair though, Matt, that wasn't Snyder that made those choices. That was the studio. The studio made the choices to rush it because what's that?
I'm sure he had some input into it.
No, they were trying to rush to Justice League to have their own Avengers. Like, that's what they wanted. And so they rushed it. Yeah, you're right. They should have fleshed out every character individually. The template was there. Like, Marvel is sitting there with an actual phase 1 template that makes everyone happy and makes tons of money. All you got to do is take that exact template and superimpose your characters over it. It's not that hard. But they wanted to rush it. They wanted their justice. They thought, the next big thing is team ups. We need to jump to the team up.
All right, real quick.
Well, and I get where you're coming from, Matt. But at this point, I also understand why James Gunn wants to kind of start fresh. Would you want that polluted water to deal with after 10 years? I mean,
I'm surprised we're getting a soft reboot.
Hey guys, if you like this podcast, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel and comment below on your favorite video as well. That goes a long way with helping us boost our channel and get out there in front of more people. And it lets YouTube know that we're doing something right. And if you want to catch us live, we go live 2 times a week, once on Saturdays at 10 a.m. Pacific time and on Tuesdays at 1:30 p.m. Pacific time. So join us there in the chat. We will see you on the live stream. Stay salty.